Book review, Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. The Legendborn Cycle Book 3. Plot summary. Oathbound by Tracy Deonn is the explosive third installment in the Legendborn Cycle series that melds Arthurian legend with contemporary black girl magic and secret societies hidden beneath the veneer of modern-day academia. Picking up after the shattering events of Bloodmark, the story finds Bree Matthews. Once the fiery heir of Arthur, adrift emotionally and physically severed from everything she once knew and trusted, haunted by trauma and grief, has distanced herself from the Legendborn order, the magical lineage society she once fought so hard to protect. In doing so, she has also rejected her dual heritage, both her Arthurian legacy and her ancestral root magic. This self-exile is not just emotional but strategic. Bree believes that by isolating herself, she can protect those she loves from the dangers that seem to follow her path. But her self-imposed isolation does it without cost. In her desperation, Bree has struck a perilous deal with the Shadow King, a powerful shape-shifting entity who straddles the line between the human world, the demon realm, and the Order's twisted mythos. Bound by supernatural oaths, Bree becomes the unwilling protege of this mysterious and malevolent figure. While the Shadow King offers Bree the training and power she needs to control her volatile abilities, every lesson comes at price. Her autonomy, her soul, possibly her humanity, are now entangled in his dark grasp. This relationship is both mentorship and trap, forcing Bree to confront the darkness within herself as well as the corruption at the heart of the world she tried to escape. Meanwhile, the Order of the Round Table is in turmoil. Without clear leader, their structure is crumbling. Bree's former allies, the remaining signs, are fractured and uncertain. Selwyn Kane, the once loyal kingsmith who struggled with his identity and purpose, has vanished, leaving behind void in the Order's magical defenses. Nick Davis, Arthur Sign, and Bree's former love, takes drastic action to restore order, invoking long-forgotten law that compels the High Council of Regents to listen to his demands, but this ancient right backfires. Rather than being granted platform, Nick is imprisoned by the Merlins, the powerful enforcers of the magical society. As political tensions rise within the Order, a new threat emerges in the form of mysterious kidnappings and Merlin murders. These attacks are too calculated to be random and too brutal to ignore. As more magical figures fall and his ancient powers stir, it becomes increasingly clear that something far more sinister is at work. Something connected not only to Bree's lineage, but to the very foundation of the Legendborn world. Despite her efforts to stay awake, as drawn back into the chaos, her ties to the people she tried to leave behind, William, Greer, Alice, Nick, and even Sal, remain strong. She's forced to reckon with her complicated relationships, her guilt, and her growing power. The team is fractured, but not beyond repair. The love, loyalty, and longing that still bind them make their reunions both heart-wrenching and powerful. Bree's journey in Oathbound is one of emotional reckoning and spiritual evolution. She must navigate an identity that is torn between Arthurian myth and ancestral magic, between chosen family and inherited duty. Her bond with the Shadow King provides an intense, often morally gray lens through which she reevaluates notions of good and evil, power and vulnerability. She starts to question the legitimacy of the Order's ideals and traditions, wondering who they really serve and whether they are worth saving. Ick's storyline takes darker turn as well. Imprisoned and isolated, he is no longer the golden boy of the Order. His internal struggle between duty and rebellion, between truth and the myth he was raised to uphold, brings to light long-buried secrets that could change everything. His confrontation with the High Council is not just about freeing himself, but about dismantling the oppressive systems that have ruled for centuries. Selwyn, too, goes a transformative arc. Missing for much of the story, he returns changed both in power and perspective. His loyalty to Bree is tested as his bonds with the Merlins and the Scions. Like Bree, he stands at crossroads between duty and personal conviction, forced to choose what kind of man and what kind of protector he truly wants to be. Thematically, Oathbound explores what it means to belong, to lead, and to wield power responsibly. It questions inherited systems and challenges the mythologies that societies cling to, particularly when those narratives are built on erasure, violence, and control. Bree's personal journey reflects larger fight for justice, equity, and healing. Not just for herself, but for all those who've been marginalized by the systems she once believed in. In the final act, all threads converge. Bree and her allies confront the growing threat behind the kidnappings and deaths, uncovering vast conspiracy that links demons, corrupted Merlins, and the darkest parts of the Order's history. Bree must make devastating choice. One that could either sever her remaining ties to humanity or forge a new path entirely, reshaping the magical world in her own image. With Oathbound, Tracy Deonn delivers masterful continuation. Legendborn Cycle An epic filled with breathtaking magic, searing emotion, and razor-sharp insight into history, identity, and the burden of legacy. As Bree steps into her full power, the stage is set for conclusion that promises to be as revolutionary as it is unforgettable. Book review. Tracy Deonn's Oathbound, the third installment in the Legendborn cycle, is a breathtaking continuation of genre-defining series that boldly reimagines Arthurian legend through the lens of contemporary Black identity, ancestral magic, and emotional truth. Deonn's blended epic fantasy, intimate character development, and sharp social commentary reaches new heights in this volume as Bree Matthews steps deeper into her dual legacies. Both as the scion of Arthur and the descendant of root magic, she becomes not only heroine of legend, but symbol of reclamation and resistance in a world built to forget voices like hers. At its heart, Oathbound is a story of fracture and transformation. Deonn doesn't rush to resolve the emotional devastation left behind in Bloodmark. Instead, she lets the aftermath breathe. The narrative opens with Bree in exile, having severed ties with the Legendborn and distanced herself from her friends and allies. Her choice to turn away from both the Order's magical system and her own ancestral connections is wrenching, one motivated by grief, guilt, and fear. Deonn explores this decision not as failure of heroism, but as a moment of deeply human self-preservation. Bree is not just tired. She is spiritually and emotionally scorched, and it shows. This is what makes Oathbound such a resonant and mature entry in the series. It is a story about what happens after the fight, what happens when a teenage girl has been burned by the very power that was supposed to uplift her, what happens when the systems of inheritance, both magical and cultural, demand sacrifice without giving space to heal. Into this space walks the Shadow King, shape-shifting figure who represents everything Bree has tried to avoid. Seduction, danger, manipulation, and unchecked power. He offers Bree Devil's bargain, training in the use of her volatile powers in exchange for an unbreakable oath of service. With no allies and no path forward, Bree takes the deal. The Shadow King is a compelling new character, not merely villain or mentor, but mirror. He pushes Bree to question the of good and evil, human and demon, tradition and rebellion. Their dynamic crackles with tension, often veering into morally ambiguous territory that challenges both Bree and the reader. Deonn handles Bree's psychological arc with stunning nuance. Bree is not always likable in this book, but she is always real. Her pain, her rage, and her longing for connection all drive her decisions. Sometimes toward redemption, other times toward recklessness. She lashes out, she withdraws, she hesitates. But through it all, she grows. If Legendborn was her awakening and Bloodmarked her fall, Oathbound is her reckoning. Parallel to Bree's journey, the round table is in disarray. The signs are scattered, unsure of their roles without Bree or the structure of the order. Selwyn Kane, the stoic and fierce Kingsmage, is missing. His absence mystery that haunts both Bree and the reader. Nick Davis, Bree's former love, and the rightful heir to Arthur's legacy, has been imprisoned by the very order he once served, is active invoking an ancient law, meant to restore order, is twisted against him. This reversal highlights the hypocrisy and rot within the magical institution and serves as one of Deonn's many critiques of systems that mask oppression with tradition. The politics of the order become a central thread in Oathbound, with no clear leadership and the High Council of Regents holding on to power through fear and manipulation. Chaos reigns. Deonn deftly explores the internal fractures in the institution, rivalries between houses, dissent among Merlins, and the question of whether the order is even worth saving. For a society built on the legend of unity and nobility, the reality is far more corrupt. It is in the face of ideological collapse that Bree's story gains its revolutionary edge. While Oathbound is rich in lore and plot, it never loses sight of its characters. Every emotional beat lands. Bree's relationships, especially her complicated ties to Nick and Sel, are developed with care. The love triangle, far from being trope, becomes poignant exploration of identity and choice. With Nick, Bree shares dream deferred, legacy claimed and then refused. With Sel, she finds someone who sees her shadow and does not flinch. Deonn avoids easy answers. She honors the ache in these connections, the tenderness and the tragedy. The return of Bree's friends, William, Greer, Alice, and others, adds light to the book's emotional intensity. Their loyalty, even when strained, provides Bree with lifeline. Alice remains standout, offering sharp wit and unwavering friendship in the face of magic she doesn't fully understand but chooses to fight beside anyway. These bonds of chosen family, so central to the series, remind the reader that survival is rarely solo act. Where Oathbound truly shines, though, is in its thematic ambition. Deonn refuses to separate magic from history, power from oppression. The book interrogates the cost of legacy, particularly when that is built on blood and silence. Bree's struggle with her identity as black girl and whitewashed magical system becomes even more pronounced here. She's not just reclaiming seat at the table. She's questioning whether the table should exist at all. The contrast between the Order's Arthurian tradition and Bree's ancestral root magic remains central. Bree's magical lineage is not just different from the Order's. It is deeper, older, more grounded in community and healing. This cultural contrast is not presented as binary, but is challenged as synthesis. Bree is both. She is neither. She is something new. Her very existence is threat to the systems that claim to be inviolable. And that is exactly the point. Pacing of Oathbound is deliberate. Deonn takes her time with the emotional arcs, letting the action build gradually toward climactic final act that is both thrilling and devastating. When the mystery of the Merlin murders and the kidnappings begins to unfold, the narrative kicks into high gear. The twists are expertly plotted, revealing betrayals and truths that have been seeded since the first book. Without spoiling key reveals, it's safe to say that Deonn rewards readers. Nothing in Oathbound is accidental. Every thread connects. The prose itself is electric. Deonn's writing is lyrical and visceral, often poetic in its emotional clarity. She doesn't shy away from pain, nor does she glamorize it. There's beauty in the rawness, in the way characters speak to each other in half-truths and unspoken love. Scenes of combat are balanced with quiet moments of grief and longing. The world-building, steeped in myth and memory, is immersive without being overwhelming. One of Deonn's most impressive feats, how she balances personal and epic stakes. Bree is not just fighting monsters. She's fighting herself, her body, her magic, her grief. They are battlegrounds. The threats are both cosmic and intimate, making every victory hard-won and every loss heartbreakingly personal. In genre that often leans on escapism, Oathbound is refreshingly confrontational. It demands that readers think. It invites questions about who gets to tell stories, who gets to power, and what it means to be legend. Deonn is not just reimagining King Arthur. She is reclaiming and repurposing the myth into something inclusive, alive, and urgent. Is the third book in the series. Oathbound functions both as the bridge and a transformation. It deepens the mythology while setting the stage for an epic conclusion. Bree is no longer the girl trying to survive the magical world. She is becoming the woman who will reshape it. And with Deonn at the helm, there's no doubt that the final chapter of the Legendborn cycle will be as groundbreaking as everything that has come before. Final thoughts. Oathbound is triumph of fantasy storytelling. It is bold, emotionally resonant, and thematically rich. Tracy Deonn has created modern classic series that speaks to the heart while challenging the mind. Bree Matthews is heroine for the ages, flawed, fierce, and unforgettable. This book doesn't just continue the story. It elevates it, highly recommended for fans of contemporary fantasy Arthurian retones. Powerful female protagonists and stories that refuse to look away from truth. Rating 5 stars.